This is called The Shape of a Day. Courtney and I slept together a few nights ago, but not like that. Girlfriends at 16, we were each other's first love. Now, almost 20 years later, that's not us. But I've been staying in the 5-bedroom house Courtney shared with her mom until last week when her mom bled to death in Courtney's arms. They couldn't stand each other, but they loved one another. That sort of, you piss me the hell off, but I love the hell out of you because you know me so well, that type of mother-daughter relationship. A few days after Regina coughed out so much blood that it killed her, Courtney and I slept in her dead mom's bed, right where the fatal blood flood began. That night, Regina had called for help. Courtney had raced to the bedroom to find her spewing out blood, quote, like a water hose, Courtney described. Then she got her mom off the floor, leaned her over her shoulder to let the blood weep out of her, and held her mom as she died. I mean, how do you stop that kind of bleeding? Courtney rhetorically questioned me a few days later. You don't. You can't. You just make the person comfortable so they don't drown in their own blood. So I'm staying with Courtney to comfort her. I reached out to her when I saw her Facebook post about her motherless daughter status, regardless that we hadn't talked to each other in years. We slept together in her mom's bed, but not like how we slept together in her mom's bed when we were in high school and her mom was out of town, and so we fucked like mad on her king-size mattress. This time, I didn't spoon her. I was just there, filling in the motherless hollow to fight off loneliness and depression, sleeping in the spot where Regina started to slip away from life as her life force, all that blood, slipped out of her. 6 years ago, the blood slipped out of me, intentionally though. Not a hospital mishap like in Regina's situation, but a repeated act that landed me in psych wards and ERs. My arms wept from mental instability, self-medicated with intoxication. Courtney missed this part of my life, like how I missed her wicked meth addiction. But the scars on my forearms are there to fill her in on my life events she wasn't a part of, because ex-lovers tend to drift away like that. The intensity of first love snaps, then communication fizzles, goes flat. Decades drift the exes apart. Courtney was not in my life for 20 years. 3 of those spent slicing my arms. She didn't see the psychosis and spilled blood. Still, here we are, 20 years post-breakup, and a certain level of I know you so well is felt each time I collect her grieving body in my scarred arms and try to lessen the weight of such grief, something she never had a chance to do for me. I pray promises to my ex-girlfriend's dead mother. 4 days after her death from an instance of too many blood thinners prescribed post-lung surgery, I'm cleaning blood splatter off a dresser 10 feet away from where Regina began to die. And I'm making promises to this dead woman that I'll take care of her daughter, even though that was a major factor in our relationship's demise. My ex didn't know how to take care of herself, never brushed her teeth, showered, or cleaned up after herself, and I got frustrated with trying to get her to do it all. Before personal hygiene issues and frustrations over one's lack of semi-adulting, our relationship was good even though it started off not so good. For our first real date, Courtney and I went ice skating, and she fell trying to do a hockey stop wearing figure skates. Her nose hit the ice and busted open, and blood came gushing out. After the manager hollered for someone to get some ice, after my date screamed back, "There's fucking ice all around me," I then sat in the hospital's ER waiting room with her mother, who I had never met, her father, who didn't even know I existed and that his daughter was gay, and the tension simmering between the two of them, even though their divorce was over 16 years ago. It was textbook awkward. Regardless, Regina came an ally at times with me, as we both experienced her daughter's frustrating lack of cleanliness and punctuality. Comrades in commiserating, we bonded over the common enemy. It wasn't a strong bond by any means, and I won't embellish it here to make more out of a relationship than what it really was. People do this after death, claim closeness so we can feel more involved with everyone else's grief. But I will say she became a fixture in my life during that 1.5-year relationship. And now I sit on her bedroom floor, wiping away her own personal evidence left behind of her soul now gone. I am here, staying at her house for the 4th night in a row, keeping Courtney company, helping to hold such grief, cleaning blood-splattered dressers, blocking mental images of the events, feeding the 12 cats and 2 dogs, giving hugs when my ex starts howling, and trying to help her make a day look like a day again. My therapist from forever ago would talk to me about that. How when we experience trauma, the first thing we have to do is try to make a day look like a day. Sleep, wake up, eat, do something, eat, sleep. It sounds so simple and easy until you're grieving. And even years after a death, there are days that resemble nothing of themselves. In the 20 years during which Courtney and I lost touch, many people in my life died. My father, grandparents, a smattering of friends, a mentee, my sanity. With each death, I felt a little more of myself slip away until I started to swipe away at my flesh with memories of the dead. Those rocky relationships I didn't get to reconcile before the other person bowed out of life. Through each of these complicated and tragic deaths, my therapist continued to say that days had to start being made again. Even when the weight of one more breath made me want to cut, made me feel like I might get crushed. Courtney and I watched a documentary yesterday about the killer whales at SeaWorld, how they really did kill. One whale trainer lying on the stomach of a whale, another 1,200-pound whale sprinting up, lifting into the air, then landing right on top of the other whale. The trainer crushed between them, a deathly whale sandwich. That's my ex-girlfriend's grief, floating along in life until an event occurs, and grief comes crashing down, completely flattening you. And it's true. Grief crushes, kills. Parts of you die off when the living go dead. So perhaps I'm here on a rescue mission. Save what parts of Courtney I can so she can begin building her days again. We watch documentaries to distract her, though she keeps putting the pipe to her lips, keeps tossing trash wherever, keeps eating only pink wafer cookies. She hasn't showered in months. Guiding the grieving is hard enough when you don't have someone's addiction and uncleanliness predilection to factor in. I'm slowly seeing that Courtney's days have never looked like days, even before death came crashing down. I decorate my walls with the dead, the faces I have captured over the years, images of me posed with those who are no longer alive. It's odd to look at a picture taken at your high school graduation and realize that of the 4 people posed together, you're the only one who's still alive. And yet I find comfort in looking at the dead because it ensures me that those people were real, that the human connection I felt with them, both bad and good, wasn't of my imagination, even though they now only exist in my memories. Though there is healing power in interacting with the imagination, it's the space where past arguments are solved and stagnant relationships are strengthened. I talk to the dead on my walls, but not in a psychotic way. Rather, I have conversations with them in my head that help to keep me living, growing. How after the scars started forming, grief started dissipating, and trauma then started fading. Sometimes I swear I can hear the dead cheering me on. I don't have a picture of Regina hanging on my wall because we weren't really close like that. But I keep on conversing with my ex-girlfriend's dead mother, promising I'll take care of her daughter because she has never known how to do that. Doing laundry, making phone calls, checking mail, cleaning furniture, and grocery shopping. I'm here to coax Courtney into the structure of a normal motherless day. To get her to eat, get her to sleep, get her to put the meth pipe down for a minute and just breathe. To make her feel comfortable in living. There's a type of comfort between us now, how our pasts are imprinted on one another's bones. We were there for each other's coming of age, played a part even in our becoming of self, regardless of the years spent apart. This is not about reignited romantic love. That will never happen. Our attraction for one another petered out and died quickly towards the end of us. Rather, it is a knowing you so well love, like Courtney and Regina had. Even when our frustrating traits are still major staples of our personalities, a connection is still felt, an ease, comfort created. I have come to comfort to help hold her grief. But how can you really hold someone else's grief? My therapist from forever ago used to say that. how she held things for me. And in the holding, my emotional experience could shift, lighten up a bit, as if the heavy load of my emotional states could be unburdened just a bit by telling her of what was weighing on me. And with the way that I see Courtney's grieving, her downward spiraling into a life that's not for the living, I don't know how long my strength will hold out, will hold her. I'm making promises to a dead woman I'm not sure I can keep. The end.
Well, thank you, Chelsey.
Yeah.
And welcome. I'm Jana Benge, and I'm here with Chelsey Clammer at the Kerouac Project of Orlando. And Chelsey is our current writing resident. And this is something you wrote just before you came to the house, right?
Yes, I had just finished writing it, and then I had edits to do on it, and I finished editing it here. I think like on the second day I finished it. And then it actually already got published back on October 20th by Mud Season Review.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
You have had a really clipped pace of having things.
I have.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's funny because I came here to write a hybrid memoir about my divorce from my ex-husband and a falling out of a friendship, and then the loss of a 4-year-old girl that was in my life because of that falling out. And it was, I think, like the third day I was trying to work on it, and I was just like, this is going to be a really dark 3 months if I keep working on this. So I completely just decided not to do that. And it was actually from writing this essay that I thought of how I always wanted to write a collection of essays about the powerful, empowering women in my life. And even though Courtney's not that empowering, she's a very strong woman for sure. And so I've spent the whole time here working on that collection of essays. I have it planned out. It's like 9 essays, I believe, and I wrote 5 of them while I was here, and 2 of them I'm still working on, and then 2 of them from the collection, that one included, have been published already.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it has. It's been very exciting and productive.
Yeah. And, well, let's go back to the beginning. How did you hear about the Kerouac Project?
I actually had never heard of it.
Oh, wow.
Well, I hadn't. There's so many residencies out there. But one of the women who I think was on a selection committee, or maybe she's on the board, she had read my book, Circadian, and thought that I would be a good candidate for here. And so I looked into the project and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this exists. It's, you know, a lot of residencies are only 4 weeks, sometimes only 2 weeks, 6 weeks. And so when I saw that it was 3 months, I was like, hell yeah, I want to apply to this. I'm so glad. So I did. I applied and I submitted the essay, and I got the email a few months later. Yeah.
So had you been to any other residencies?
No, I'd applied for a few and I just had never got in. And I always just, it's funny, but I feel like I don't have time to do residencies because I'm busy, and I'm like, I can't have all that time for writing. That's insane. So I've never really applied to too many of them, but I'm absolutely glad that I applied to this one.
So what does it feel to have so much time to write?
It was really freeing for a very long part of it. Then I had moments where I was like, oh my God, I can't write another word. I've been writing. I've been writing for 2 months straight.
Now.
Like, oh God, my brain. But it's nice then, because when you have those moments, you have the space to be like, I can take a break because I'm not rushed. I don't have to get back to work tomorrow. I can take that break and have that space and then jump back into it. So it's been nice to have both of those moments and to be able to kind of work through them and push yourself when you're kind of bored to just be like, no, keep writing. And then you can take a break and then you can write the next day.
And what, had you been to Orlando before?
No, I'd been to Tampa for the writers conference. That was a few years ago. Well, no, I went to Disney World when I was 5. I remember that. But other than that, no, I've never spent any significant amount of time in any of Florida.
So how did it gel with your expectations?
I had 0 expectations, which is good. I didn't know what to expect. I came right before a hurricane was supposed to hit. So that was interesting. And I came anyway and it never hit. But I think what's been really nice is to be able to be outside all day. I love working outside. I don't know, I just love it. So the weather, of course, is nice. And it's been interesting to sit outside and see how active the neighborhood is. And I've gotten to know so many of the neighbors, or even just by sight, them walking their dogs and kids, you know, across the street all the time. So it's been, I've felt more a part of this neighborhood than I thought that I would. I didn't think I would even feel part of the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's definitely a walking kind of everything, the stores, everything you can walk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great little area.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, you were reading about the rhythm of a day. What kind of rhythm did you develop for your writing here?
I started with a really good schedule, and I think I kept it throughout most of the time here, where I usually like woke up at 7 and then I knit for a few hours in the morning to get my brain going, and then I would usually write all from like 9.
I think we have to go back to I knit for several hours. I mean, I was like, whoa. I mean, I know you do because I can see how prolific you've been. But tell us a little bit about your knitting writing.
My knitting and writing. Well, I like to knit because it's another creative outlet. And for me, it's the feeling of writing. I do all handwriting first. So everything that I've ever written, I have the first draft handwritten because I love the feeling of it. So it makes sense that I love the feeling of working with my hands. So I'll sit outside every morning, usually from like 7 to 9 or 10, and I'll have my notebook out and I'll sit there and I'll knit. And I'll be like, I should write about that. And I'll make some notes and jot them down and I'll knit. And then whenever I'm done finally with the knitting, I then sit down and I work on what I had planned out while I was knitting. And I'll write for most of the day. And then I usually would take like a 3-hour break sometimes and just go running or do cleaning or, whatever, do errands. And then usually at night I would go back to writing and knitting and just kind of do the writing until my brain hurt. And then I would knit for the rest of the night.
Yes. Well, you've certainly. What have you knitted while you've been here?
Oh my goodness, I made a list. It's so funny. It's like 30 things. I've knit like 3 sweaters and I think like 6 hats and dishcloths.
And including the one you're modeling.
This one I came with.
Oh, you actually you did.
I did. I made this while I was here. This is my shawl.
That's cute.
So I made a little shawl. But yeah, the knitting keeps me writing for sure. Yeah, and vice versa. It's nice too when your brain is dead and you're sick of looking at a sentence. For me, I focus on sentences and what they sound like. And so if a sentence is pissing me off because I don't like how it sounds, I can sit and knit and like revise it in my head and figure it out.
So where are you going from here?
I am returning to Courtney's house because I'm
all right.
I'm living with Courtney. She's been taking care of my dog. And so I'm going back to that, and I've slowly started to transition to working again because I do all freelance editing. And so I'm editing people's books, and I started teaching an online class. So I've been writing a little less and starting to transition back to editing other people's work. So it's been the past week has been hard having to do that. But so I'll be going back to Austin and continue to work on the essays that I'm working on now. And then I found out a few days ago, I finally got a publication date for my 3rd collection of essays. It's coming out from Red Hen Press in the fall of 2022. So I have 3 years, but I will be returning to that book. It's called Human Heartbeat Detected, and I'll be working on editing all those essays.
Great.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Well, we'll certainly put a link below this video of where people can find your writing.
Wonderful. Yes.
And what would you say the main gift of the Kerouac Project has been to you?
Having the mental space, actually. I mean, having this entire house has been wonderful. It's been really great. But having the space to just write and not feel like I have to cram my writing into my day, but allow it to just kind of expand throughout the day. That is something that I would have never been able to have if I hadn't had, a free space to live and not have to worry about any of my bills and just have the space to write and have that be my focus. So definitely the mental space has been amazing.
Well, good. Well, we are very, very glad that you came. And
I'm glad I came too. It's wonderful.
You've been a wonderful resident, and we've got a little bit of a piece of you now. And when you go forward, you've been a part of us, and so thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate
so
it
much. Yeah, thanks.